I want to get over there and start like breathing in it.
That would be kind of creepy. All right. Talk about advanced directives. Okay. So I'm sorry you can't see this slide very good. It's like online, it's so dark, but this projector needs some help. Okay. Anybody heard of advanced directives before? No? Okay. There's different types. So an advanced directive is a legal document that explains the measures a person wants to be done or not to be done in the event that they can't make decisions for themselves. Okay, so if you were to, whatever. I mean, there could be any number of things that could happen. But if you get in a position where you can't make your own decisions regarding your health care, advanced directives is something that comes into play. Now, the thing with advanced directives is you have to do them in advance. It's like a directive to your physician, but you do it in advance. So it's not usually, once you're already unconscious, you can't really make a decision. So that's not, these have to be done ahead of time. So there's different types, and you can actually add a DNR onto the types up here at the bottom. Everybody remember a DNR? Do not resuscitate order, yeah. So there's different types, and we're going to talk about these three. Okay, so a living will. This is a document that kind of gives instructions on what kind of medical treatment you would or would not want. So you fill out a living will. You can specify, yes, I want, I would want, if something happens to me or if I become incapacitated, I do not want life support, or I do want life support, or, leave me on life support until there's, no chance for survival, or however. You can specify time. You could say no longer than 2 weeks. You could say whatever. You can specify, you can put specifics on there of what you would or would not want. And you can even specify treatments, like, if, like, was that in here? We talked about the feeding tube. The lady, the long case, yeah. You could even specify, no, yes, I want feeding tube, or no, I would not want a feeding tube if that was the only thing keeping me alive. You can specify what you want. Okay. And that can even go into hospice care type of things, right? All right, a durable power of attorney. So this is a document that gives a specified person the permission to make legal decisions on behalf of the patient in the event that they can't make their decisions. So this can include medical decisions as well, but it doesn't have to. Or you can specify what you want it to, but it can also mean that they're in charge of your property or your financial decisions. So durable power of attorney can be over lots of things besides just your health care. Does that make sense? So can serve medical purpose, doesn't have to. Or it can only serve medical purpose if you wanted it to, and not anything else. You can specify what you do or don't want them to be in charge of. So like I said, you can limit the rights or responsibilities. So it's just a power. If I get to a place where I'm not of sound mind to make decisions, I can specify this person to make all my decisions for me. All right, a healthcare proxy is really the person that you put in charge of making your healthcare decisions if you can't make them. Okay, so this is specific to healthcare, and sometimes you'll hear this at medical power of attorney. You'll hear it termed that too. That might be the newer term, but anyway. So it's specifically, basically, a healthcare power of attorney or medical power of attorney, where you can specify what treatments or what types of treatments you would or would not want. Plus, you can put someone in charge of your health care. So you can specify treatments, and if there's anything else, you can write down a person's name and let them make those decisions. Does that make sense? So a durable power of attorney can include other things besides just medical information. A healthcare proxy or medical power of attorney is only for medical decisions. Are we good with that? Because we'll see those tomorrow on the quiz. Okay. Client autonomy, auto, we've had that as a payday term before, right? Auto, self. So client autonomy is basically your right to your own body or your right to yourself to make your own decision. Remember we talked about, in Erik Erikson's stages, autonomy versus shame and doubt was one of the stages, I think, for younger childhood. Remember talking about those different stages, trust versus mistrust, identity versus role confusion. Okay, autonomy versus shame and doubt was another one of those. So it's figuring out that you can make up your own decisions. You have your own right over your own body, basically. So that is autonomy, and that's really important in healthcare. Autonomy is, if you think about it, because at the end of the day, you're in charge of your own treatment. You're going to be in charge of doing what the doctor says, and so it's very important in healthcare that people feel like they are in charge of their own healthcare and not, they haven't been forced into doing something. All right, so client autonomy, still talking about client autonomy, but a patient's bill of rights. Every hospital has a patient bill of rights. Every hospital. Usually, like if you go into the hospital, they have a little pamphlet that might have them listed, or it might just say go to the website. They're always listed on their website. And they're just listed out, the rights of the patient, the rights that they have. So the ones I put on your slide are, they can change or be reworded from hospital to hospital, but they're going to have the same kind of basic rights for the most part. You're going to see the same ones. So let's go over these. It says receive considerate and respectful care. Everybody has a right to receive considerate and respectful care. So as we go through these, I want you to think, if you're the patient, how important these are, but also if you're the healthcare worker, how important these are. So receive considerate and respectful care. So for you as a patient, you have a right to receive respectful and considerate care. It doesn't matter why you're in the hospital or why you've gone to the emergency room. You have the right to receive that kind of care. At the same time, if you're the healthcare worker, it doesn't matter why they come in there. It doesn't matter if it's a patient that you see every week and they won't follow the doctor's orders and you keep seeing them and they're not compliant and they just keep coming back. It doesn't matter if they're the drunk driver that hit someone else. If they're in there for injuries, you have to treat them with respect and give them considerate care. It doesn't matter what you think about them or, what your opinion is of what happened. You have to treat them that way because they have a right to be treated that way. Second one, receive complete and current information related to your diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis. What is a prognosis? Okay,
Something you've been told you have.
That's a diagnosis. Okay, think pro, it means the same as pre, which is what? Before. No, G-N-O, or nos, G-N-O, that's knowledge. So kind of before knowledge, which doesn't really make sense. But think about it, a prognosis is basically what your physician gives you the time and outlook of.
So it's like an educated guess.
Right. It's like, okay, you've got, maybe you've got 6 months to live. That would be a prognosis. Or if we expect you to make a complete recovery, that's a prognosis. We expect you to always have this issue, but we can maybe help make it better in the meantime. That's a prognosis. Does that make sense? Like your outlook of whatever's going on. So it says patients all have the right to know what diagnosis they have, right? You want to know. You have a right to know what you have wrong with you if there is something. 2, you have a right to know what treatment options there are. You have a right to know what's available for you to have. And then the prognosis, so the outlook of what's going to happen, or at least an idea of what's going to happen. Okay, so the next one, know the identity of healthcare personnel. Anytime you go somewhere, all healthcare personnel should always have a name tag. We should always have a name tag. You need to know who it is. Know immediate and long-term costs. So that's a right of a patient to know how much something's going to cost. Obtain information about his or her health care, review medical records, or have any information explained. So it doesn't matter why you go to the doctor, you always have the right to obtain whatever it is that they write about you, whatever their medical records are. Now, sometimes they make you pay for them, like you have to pay for the paper to print them or something like that. Like you pay a certain amount per page or whatever. But you have the right to obtain that information and that documentation. The other part of that is have any information explained. So if there's something on that paperwork that you don't understand, they have to offer for you to explain it. Okay. Continuity of care. What do you think that means? Anybody? What word do you see in continuity? John?
Important.
What word do you see in continuity?
Continue.
Stay with me. So, yeah, continue. So continuity of care means that your care is not interrupted. Like if you get transferred from the emergency room up to the floor, emergency room to the radiology department and back, there's a continuation of care, right? They communicate what's going on and what needs to be done. It's not they're going to get your information back and forth. They're going to follow along that treatment. And that's the same if you go from the hospital to home health or the hospital to nursing home or whatever. There should be some continuity of care. Be informed of business relationships of the provider. So if the hospital or agency that's working with you, they have some kind of business relationship, you have a right to know about those in case there's some kind of conflict of interest or something. Receive information necessary to give informed consent. What all are things that they said that you need to have on an informed consent? We talked about that the other day. They're going to pull your tooth. Yeah, no, go ahead. What are things they have to tell you?
They have to tell you like exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, they have to tell you about the procedure.
Like the order.
Okay. No, I don't know that they have to get super specific, like go into big long detail, but they have to tell you what they're going to do. Yes, we're going to give you this kind of anesthesia. Okay. So yeah, what's the expected outcome, right? They have to tell you what risks are involved. So is there a risk that you could, whatever it might be, there's a risk for infection. That's always going to be a risk with pulling the tooth. So they have to tell you ahead of time that's a risk. They have to tell you what happens if you don't do anything. So basically you're going to have tooth pain forever until you want to claw your eyes out. Maybe they have to tell you what are the risks of not doing anything, or what are the risks of what are other treatment options you might could consider. Those are all things that are involved, and so everybody has the right to informed consent. I hope so, because if you don't have informed consent and you do a procedure on someone, then that's bad. All right, so you have the right to execute advanced directives. Everybody has the right to write out a living will, or a healthcare, or a power of attorney, whatever. Refuse treatment to the extent permitted by law. So everybody has the right to refuse treatment. What was that we said the other day? What is it? Whenever you leave the hospital without the doctor.
Against medical advice.
Right, AMA. You leave AMA against medical advice. I remember that last week. Okay, but it says you can only refuse treatment to the extent permitted by law. What does that mean?
Like if you're in the hospital for a legal reason.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if there's some kind of court-ordered reason for you to be hospitalized, so maybe it's a mental health institution, so somebody's been committed by the court to a mental health institution. Maybe you've committed some kind of violent crime, for example, maybe,
You ran over someone in your car because of it.
or maybe you were in an accident and you were drinking. That might be a reason that you don't get to refuse treatment.
Can't the court order you to take, if you're supposed to be on a certain type of medicine, can't they order you to take it?
Yeah.
What if you don't take it?
Huh?
What if you don't take it?
I guess they can put you into a facility somewhere and you have to take it. So, right. So not everybody can refuse treatment, but the only reason you can't refuse it is if for some reason your rights have been taken away because you've done something to make those rights taken away, or you're unsafe. If you're in a mental health institution, maybe you're unsafe for yourself or others. Receive consideration related to privacy and then assured confidentiality. Those kind of fit in together, right? You have the right to your own confidentiality for your information, that not the whole world knows about what's going on with you. Obtain reasonable responses to requests for services. If you ask for something, you should get a response reasonably. Maybe, whatever it may be. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you have to call a lot and it takes a really long time, but it should happen reasonably. Know if the treatment is experimental. I would hope so. Right? You want to know if something is experimental, you should know. You don't want to turn into zombies. Like which one was the movie where they turned into zombies because everybody took this new cancer drug or something with Will Smith? I Am Legend.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
That was a good movie.
It scared me.
Do it.
It scared me.
It scared you. It was kind of scary. So yeah, we don't want to take something that's experimental, and if we do, we want to know about it, right? It needs to be part of a study. There needs to be more information going on. No, I'm not saying you would never want to take anything that's experimental. I'm saying you want to know if you're taking it. No hospital policies that pertain to patient care. So you have a right to know the Bill of Rights, the patient Bill of Rights. You have a right to know what your options are. Be informed of available resources. So they have an obligation to tell you if there's some kind of financial resource available or additional resources available for you. And then examine your bill. I hope so. If I'm having to pay for it, I want to be able to look at it. All right. Now, these are client responsibilities. That means the patient is responsible for these things. So provide information about history related to current health. Hey, if I go to the doctor's office and I don't tell them that I'm allergic to penicillin, okay, and then they prescribe me some medicine that has penicillin in it, or the derivative of penicillin, and I take it and go into anaphylactic shock, I can't really be upset with them if I didn't tell them that I was allergic to it. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. If I don't tell them that I have some kind of chronic disease and they give me some medicine that's going to affect that, but I didn't inform them, how are they supposed to make a good decision if they don't know what's going on? So that's a patient responsibility to be sure and share all of the pertinent history. Participation in decision making. Clients have to participate in the decision. Physicians cannot make decisions for people. Right? You can't say, yes, you're going to have surgery, whether you like it or not. It's not an option. You have to say, this is what we need to do, and they have to sign, right? Consent. Ask questions if he or she does not understand something. Okay, your physicians and your nurses can't read your mind. You don't understand something, then you just ask, right? They can't read your mind. They don't know if you're not understanding if you don't say anything. Like school, teacher can't read your mind, right? You don't understand something, they may not know, so you gotta ask. Providing copies of advanced directives, right? Let's say you take out a living will because you don't want a feeding tube or whatever your reasoning might be. But you don't give that to the physician or let them know about that, and then they put in a feeding tube, you can't really be upset with them, right? Because they didn't know, how are they supposed to know? You didn't take your paper. So usually in advance, if you take out a living will or a power of attorney or anything, you make a copy and give it to your physician and any other facilities that are involved in your healthcare. Like when I worked home health, we had lots of patients who had DNRs or power of attorney, and we kept one of those on file. They kept the original with them, but we always kept one on file so we'd know who we could talk to about their care and who we could. Inform providers if they anticipate problems with treatments. Okay, so, the last time I took this medicine, it gave me a stomach ulcer. And that's something that the physician needs to know before they give you new medicine or whatever it is. If you think you're not having an issue with it, like, I've had kidney problems in the past, so does this medicine cause kidney problems? Those are things that you need to let them know. Client responsibility to follow the doctor's orders. If they put you on a special diet, it's the patient's responsibility to follow that. The doctor can't make you do that. And at the same time, if you don't follow the physician's orders, you shouldn't expect the outcome that the physician told you would happen. Does that make sense? It's unrealistic. If you don't follow their orders, probably whatever they told you was going to happen is not going to happen. And then last one is providing agencies information needed for insurance, and then of course to pay. Hopefully. All right, and then the last one is a DNR. So I know this was a payday last week and talked about a little bit, but do not resuscitate. So this is a physician's order, the binding document that states that resuscitation should not be performed if they go into cardiac or respiratory arrest. Okay, so that means you're just going to let them die. Well, not necessarily. Now, it says may be instituted on the basis, I need to change that, basis of an advanced directive from a person or a proxy or a power of attorney. So either the person has to sign the DNR, or if they've specified a power of attorney or healthcare proxy, they could sign a DNR. But it's a big process. It's not just like let me sign this living will and you're good to go. This is has to be physician ordered, and it's only for people who are terminally ill. Your physician, if you go to your doctor and you're like, I really want you to sign a DNR for me, they're not going to do it. There's no reason for them to do a DNR for you. You're not terminal. Your prognosis is not to die in the next few months, right? So they're not going to sign that for you. This is for people who have a terminal illness that the prognosis is not good. That's when a physician is going to sign this. It's written when the physician, family, and the patient agree that quality of life would be so decreased that resuscitation should not be performed. So what they're saying is if you were to revive them, their quality of life would be so poor that they really would rather not be revived. So we're talking very, very sick, not a big chance of survival even if they were revived, really. And one thing about a DNR is that it has to be posted. Okay, so if you stay at home, like I've had patients before with DNRs at home when I was doing home health, it was as soon as you walk in the door, it was like they had their DNR framed and it was on the wall, so that if an EMT or ambulance came, they could see it very easily, that they're not to be revived. So it's, very much just, it has to be obvious. At the nursing home, it's been a while since I've been over there, or at least used to. I know they had a big staff change. They had, the charts were different. They had a different thing on the front. So the front would say DNR or full code. Full code means you do revival. So they have like a green for a full code and a red for a DNR. It has to be very obvious what you want to do, because otherwise, if an EMT comes in and there's no DNR anywhere, what are they going to do? What do they have to do? Right, they have to resuscitate. And same for any healthcare personnel. So it has to be like very obvious and posted. That's it. Any questions on any of those? Make sure you study for the quiz and get the vocabulary turned in.